Insane secrets, where poor peasants slept during journeys, shocking history revealed. The day dawned gray and grim, cloaked in a thick fog that curled around the legs of weary travelers. These were the lowly peasants of your huddled masses trudging along the crumbling cobblestone roads, their dreams crushed under the boots of a merciless world. As shadows flickered beneath the skeletal trees, these unfortunate souls whispered an age-old secret of survival, a chilling ancestor's knowledge lost to time. They sought the warmth of hollowed trees and forgotten alcoves, where the ground still held the memories of desperate nights that in those dark corners of history, it was said that a dark omen lingered. Travelers spoke of spectral figures watching from the dense woods. Lurking eyes measuring their hope against despair. Was it fate, or merely a cruel trick of the fog? Under the weight of their rags and burdens, urban legends bubbled forth the tales of the hideaways, mysterious shelters, once promised safety yet unfeathered from lurking dangers. They served not only as nights of respite but also as clandestine meeting points for the outlaws and mystics of their time. As rumors of these unholy sanctuaries spread, tension seeded itself into the hearts of those journeying. Would one find sanctuary or cutthroats waiting to steal what little hope they had left? The air was thick, almost electric, as they shared tales, their voices shaking with excitement and fear. A sudden rustling in the leaves sent a collective gasp through the crowd as they looked to each other, wide-eyed. Was there something lurking just beyond sight, waiting to pounce on the unsuspecting? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads-up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Just as fear was about to consume them, a tremor traveled through the ground, shaking loose memories of long past. A wild boar burst through the underbrush, roaring violently as the peasants stumbled back. Their hearts raced. It wasn't the darkness that haunted them, it was the raw, uncontrollable chaos of reality. Suddenly, the spectral tales seemed all too real. What if the legends weren't just stories? What if there was truth in the whispers of the night? As they regained composure, some ventured closer to the trees. Curiosity sparked within hearts now casting aside fear. Could these legends lead them to safety, or would they enable their undoing? Would the specters they had feared become their saviors, or would they find themselves trapped in their tangled web of shadows? As they pressed on, the looming question hung heavy in the air: what awaited them in the depths of the unknown? The fog thickened, wrapping the peasants in an unsettling embrace. As they stumbled into the underbrush, the shadows danced ominously, twisting every tree into ghostly figures. A chill clawed at their spines, urging them to retreat. Yet, they pressed on, the promise of the hideaways a flicker of hope in their dim reality. Suddenly, an elderly man among them, veins taut like dried vines, raised a hand. "Listen," he urged, his voice trembling with portent. They paused, straining to hear. It was not the wind that rustled through the trees. It was whispers. Soft, ethereal voices emanating from the depths of the forest, threading through the fog like familiar tunes echoing from lost memories. A collective shiver raced through the crowd. "Do you hear that?" A young woman breathed, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and intrigue. "It's calling us." "Those are just the ghosts of the damned," growled a man, his brow furrowed in skepticism. "They'll lead you straight into danger. Stay close." But the whispers grew louder, transforming from haunting murmurs into beckoning calls. One by one, the peasants felt the pull. They exchanged worried glances, the internal struggle visible in their eyes. Would they heed the warning of the skeptic, or follow the ghosts guiding them toward what they yearned to find? Then it happened. An eerie glow ignited from not far ahead, illuminating a path through the trees. "Over there." cried a peasant with a heart pounding in his chest. Curiosity swept through them, overcoming doubt. They approached the light cautiously, stepping deeper into the unknown. The air became charged, almost electric, a blend of wonder and dread. As they ventured forward, the branches twisted together, forming unnatural shapes overhead, casting strange shadows on the ground. Suddenly, the path opened into a clearing where rough-hewn stones spiraled around a spectacular fountain. Water cascaded gently, glittering like diamonds, despite the oppressive fog. In the center stood a statue of a woman, her eyes hollow, unblinking, unfeeling. "It's beautiful," the young woman murmured. Could this be a hideaway? The words hung around them, heavy with possibility. But then, from the shadows behind the statue, figures emerged, cloaked in tattered robes. Their faces remained hidden, cloaked by darkness and mystery. Anxiety rippled through the peasants. Were these guardians or ghouls waiting to prevail over the weak? "Greetings, weary wanderers," a voice resonated from within the shadows, deep and chilling like the echo of a tomb. "You seek refuge, yet you trespass in the land of forgotten souls." Gasps erupted among them, layers of realization dawning. They had stumbled into something far greater than a mere resting place. This was a heart of secrets, forbidden knowledge pulsing through the air. But what else lurked beneath the surface? "Will you trade your secrets for a moment as peace?" The voice pressed, the rhythmic flow of the water now seeming sinister, intertwining with their every breath. A choice loomed before them, darker than the shadows surrounding them. What price would they pay to stay safe, and what darkness would they unearth in exchange? As their eyes locked, uncertain and terrified, the winds howled through the clearing, carrying with it a bone-chilling warning: what awaits you next will change everything. And suddenly, the whispers turned to screams, piercing through the fog, leaving them wondering if they had chosen wisely at all. The peasants froze, each heart pounding in unison, fueled by panic. The shadows shifted, cold and hard like the stones beneath their feet. The cloaked figures inched closer, their presence stretching the air taut with an electricity that crackled against their skin. "What do you want from us?" the elderly man managed to choke out. His voice cracked, revealing the raw fear in his chest. The echoes of his words dwindled in the thick fog, hanging there like a noose. "Do not fear," the cloaked figure stepped forward, a shimmering visage barely visible, "for your fears are not unwarranted. But within your choices lie the keys to your salvation and doom." The voice slithered through the mist like a serpent, curling around their minds, seeking a grip. The tension morphed into a visible entity, coiling around the peasants, suffocating in its intensity. Whispers simmered beneath their thoughts, fanning the flames of doubt. A pang of desperation clawed at the heart of the young woman. "We came here for hope, not despair." Her voice rang out, defiant yet shaky. The shadows laughed, a low, rasping sound that echoed through the clearing. "Hope? Oh, sweet child, hope is but a mirage. Intricacies of memory skirt around the truth. Would you trade your past for a fleeting moment of peace?" The peasants exchanged bewildered glances, searching for support among their ranks. A collective despair weighed heavily on them, tethering them to the ground beneath the statue. In that moment, the fountain behind them gurgled louder, each drop sounding a warning they were caught between desperation and betrayal. "Tell us what this place is." Another voice snapped, this one belonging to a burly man who rarely backed down from a fight. "What's your game?" The accusation vibrated through the air like thunder. The figure retreated slightly, shrouded deeper in shadow. "A sanctuary, or a prison, depending on what you desire to hold on to." Their breaths deepened, defeated by the weight of the revelations. With each heartbeat, they felt the ground shift beneath them as though the earth itself was alive. Something ancient and sinister lurked just beneath the surface, not the salvation they sought but perhaps their ruin. Suddenly, the statue stirred, and the figure seemed to emerge from it, tendrils of mist wrapping around its wraith-like features. They saw its hollow eyes, as deep as night, swallowing the light. A chill washed over them, the warmth of hope quickly faded. "Will you go on, then?" it asked, voice dripping with scorn. Will you barter your secrets? The truths you guard so fiercely might set you free or doom you forever. It is your past, after all, that weighs you down. The wind howled louder, raking against their skin, a cacophony of potential futures clashing. The fog thickened, entangling their thoughts, sticky and suffocating. One by one, the peasants began to tremble, paralyzed by the heavy burden of their contribution. A young boy, who'd been standing shyly at the back, finally spoke, voice quaking. What if we refuse? The shadows stirred, intrigued, and the cloaked figure tilted its head. Then your path will be severed here. A choice made to bind you, to walk eternally through this fog as lost souls forever yearning, forever restless. Panic ignited, and echoes of their own breath filled the air. Each peasant faced a mirror of themselves, reflecting choices they regretted, choices they craved to hide. Could they really face what lay buried deep within them? Remember, what awaits will change everything. The voice faded, swirling into something more ominous, filled with an unfathomable dread and power hidden in their whispered truths. They prepared to make the ultimate decision. In that moment, as fog curled around them like prison bars, the question hung heavily in the air: was there even true safety waiting at the end, or a dark, endless path with no return? The screams returned, echoing with a chilling urgency, and the shadows danced, writhing eagerly around them, leaving their fate unsure and teetering on the edge. The fog thickened to a palpable weight, each peasant standing frozen in the grip of dread. The air hung heavy, the whispers of their doubts turning into screams of their insecurities. Each heart beat in frantic unison like a war drum, driving home the reality of their choice. I want to play your game. The young woman shouted, her voice trembling yet fierce. Her defiance pushed against the shadows, as if challenging them to move closer. A flicker of determination ignited in her core. Yet, doubt lingered, threatening to extinguish her fire. The cloaked figure's laughter slithered through the clearing, wrapping around them like vines. Ah, but you are already players in this grand chessboard. The only difference is in who you choose to be. The air quaked at the sound, and their skin crawled as shadows twisted, melding into ghostly forms, teasing at their histories, memories clinging to the surface of their minds like cobwebs in the corners. Suddenly, the burly man stepped forward, fists clenched. What if we do share? What then? His voice, fierce yet layered with uncertainty, cut through the tension. A glance exchanged between the peasants revealed shifting loyalties, fears, and regrets begging to surface. The cloaked figure paused, eyes gleaming like a predator's in the dark. Then I shall grant you insight into the lost treasures of your past. But beware, there lies risk. For within every memory resides a burden, a weight that can either lift you or shatter you. The young boy stepped back, anxiety curling his fingers. What if my burden is too heavy? What if I can't bear it? The words spilled forth like a desperate plea, reverberating through the silent crowd. The shadows quivered as the figure leaned closer, emanating an icy breath. You must decide if you are willing to carry the scars of your truth. Or shall you prefer to remain bound here, in chains of your own making? The choice is, and always has been, yours. Every gaze locked onto the figure, searching for answers, for hope. The atmosphere vibrated. They felt the echoes of lives long since lived surfacing, the chaos of their unresolved pasts begging to be acknowledged. Each one reeling from fear and regret, heart screaming for the raw, aching freedom that truth might bring. To share or not to share, the elderly man muttered, glancing at the others, the weight of his own forgotten past hanging in the air like fog. What if we all shared? A voice burst out from within the gathering. It was a woman, her expression fierce yet vulnerable. What if we bear our souls together? Ha! A fool's errand. The cloaked figure hissed, irritation slicing through the shadows. When have the burdens of many ever lightened the pain of one? Yet, the seeds of solidarity spread through the crowd like wildfire, uniting pasts once buried deep in hearts. They shared fleeting glances of understanding, hope swirling in the air like an unrelenting wind. What if they did stand together? Would the truth of their fears reveal the path to the light? No, it won't work. It can't, the burly man grumbled, and yet doubt twisted his features, the confidence of earlier slipping away. As the shadows deepened and the tension swung like a pendulum between despair and rebellion, a decision was imminent. Would they dare to expose their secrets, step into the unknown, and risk the chaos of their own truths? Time lingered in the air, stretching and pulling, the choice hung heavy with monumental consequences. As silence fell, the soft whisper of possibility brushed against them. The boy turned to the woman who had sparked their debate. If we do this together, will it really change everything? In that moment, the ground beneath them trembled, shadows churning in chaotic patterns, eager for the answer. Hearts raced. What lay ahead? Freedom or enslavement? With a sudden gust of wind, the shadows lunged, closing in. The breaking point approached. Would they plunge into the depths of their pasts or seek solace in the fog? The answer awaited, looming just beyond reach. A deafening roar echoed in their ears as the shadows surged forward, a swirling tempest of despair and secrets. Panic ignited. The fog thickened, swallowing the last remnants of light, casting them deeper into darkness. Stay together. The burly man bellowed, a frantic grasp of authority taking hold of him. But the snapping fear in his voice betrayed his own uncertainty. The figures around him swayed, unsure of where to turn as the shadows twisted and darted, hungry for their truths. In that swirling abyss, the young woman steeled her resolve. We have to share. The burden, it's heavier alone. Her words, though shaky, directed a flicker of courage into the hearts around her. Eyes flickered, meeting hers, the doubt momentarily forgotten. Together, the old man echoed, his voice surprisingly strong. We can face whatever we must. It's time to tear off the masks. The collective hesitation began to fracture, glimmers of hope shining through the cracks. Then I'll go first, shouted the fierce woman who had ignited the conversation. She stepped into the swirling darkness, fear snaking around her, yet determination made her pulse steady. My father, he was taken from me, she began, breath hitching. He was accused of treachery and never returned home. I've held that grief like a weapon for so long. Her voice broke, a cathartic release that swept through her like warm sunlight breaking the fog. As she spoke, shadows recoiled, retreating from her unveiling words. The crowd leaned in, hearts racing, clinging to her every syllable. One by one, they began to share. The elderly man recalled his lost love, a vivid tale of regret that spilled forth like an ancient river. The burly man spoke of his childhood, a violent past that shaped him into the figure he was. The boy, once terrified, found courage in vulnerability, revealing his own overlooked pains. With each story, the fog thinned, the oppressive darkness lightening as their voices wove a tapestry of shared burdens. The cloaked figure watched in silence, its face unreadable, but the shadows around it slackened, forming swirling shapes that danced away instead of encroaching. For an instant, it seemed as if a flicker of dawn kissed the horizon, a fleeting hope illuminating the scene. The whisper of possibility echoed louder than screams. See? The cloaked figure hissed, clenching its fists. You've deluded yourselves into believing sharing can liberate you. It is chaos that you embrace, confusion, and weakness. Yet uncertainty laced its tone. In response, a wave of defiant whispers rose from the villagers. We're not weak. They shouted in unison. Hope surged, filling the very air they breathed. Suddenly, from the depths of the shadows, a new form emerged. A memory, shaped like a cruel specter, swirled forward, glistening with malice. A face familiar, haunting yet not from their own histories. It was a visage of their tormentor, a figure from the past long buried and lost. Gasps echoed through the crowd as the villagers stumbled back, raw fear flooding their veins once more. The voice of the cloaked figure chimed like glass shattering, sharp and biting. Can you face this? Are you truly ready for what lies in the deepest corners of your minds? The ground shivered underfoot, as if the earth itself held its breath. Could they confront the darkness they had unleashed? Would they dare? Their eyes were wide, hearts thundering, a new realization forming. They were on the brink, on the edge of freedom or abject terror. With the specter looming close, the question reverberated. What truth remained locked behind the chains they once thought they had broken? The crowd drew closer, some trembling, others ignited by the pangs of raw defiance. But the answer loomed, chilling yet promising, just beneath the surface. A breathless silence followed as the specter twisted in the air, its face morphing, splitting into nightmarish grins and haunting frowns. The villagers recoiled, their hearts rattling like loose change in a tin can, uncertainty sharpening their fear. Who are you?" the fierce woman demanded, voice wavering but defiant. She stood firm, a solitary beacon despite the tremors threading through her body. The specter chuckled, a sound dripping with malice, as it drifted closer. "I am what you have buried. I am the shame you dare not speak. I am the betrayal hidden beneath smiles." The more it spoke, the more the shadows tightened, clawing at the edges of their minds. Could they really confront their darkest fears, their most painful secrets? Faces turned pale, hands began to shake, even the burly man's front hardened with doubt. "No!" the elderly man shouted, stepping forward. "You have no power here." His voice roared with the weight of his lost love, igniting the embers of courage within the crowd. "We will not let you win." The specter faltered, momentarily taken aback by the old man's defiance. But then it laughed, a sound cruel and low. "Bravery? You think bravery can shield you? I know the night you lay awake, tortured by whispers, the regret you drowned in whiskey, the dreams you let slip through your fingers." Each word struck like a whip, lashing against their memories. The boy staggered, tears filling his eyes, thinking of dreams he had abandoned. The fierce woman's heart raced, her father's absence washing over her like ice water. "Face me!" she screamed, her voice snapping the despair like a brittle twig. "Face the truth." The fog shifted as if stirred by the heat of her conviction, a fleeting moment of clarity amidst the tempest of fear. The cloaked figure grew still, a flicker of acknowledgement crossing its hidden face. "You think your shared burdens can balance the darkness? Can passion pull you free? Yes. We will not be caged by your horror." Another villager yelled, spurred by this spark of bravery. The air filled with a swell of voices, rising and mingling, each word a thread weaving resilience against the shadows. As their shouts echoed, the specter writhed, its form flickering like a dying candle. "You believe sharing pain can release you? Watch as you delve deeper, where the truth could destroy you." Suddenly, shadows wrapped tighter around the villagers. The darkness, once a pulsating mass, began merging into the specter, its eyes glinting with delight. "Do you see what awaits you? What lurks in the corners of your hearts? Awaken to your real nightmares." It reached out, fingers elongated, grasping for the woman as if trying to snatch her very essence. "Hold on." The old man reached for her, fear in his eyes, the collective energy pressing against the weight of despair. With an explosive force, they joined hands, a solid chain of courage linking them together. Heartbeats thundered in sync, resonating like a drum sending shockwaves of defiance. And just when it seemed their courage would crumble under the weight of the specter's threat, a blinding light erupted from their clasped hands, illuminating the shadows and tearing through the veil of darkness. The specter's form shrieked, unraveling, swirling away like autumn leaves in a storm. But at that moment of victory, a new darkness began to rise not from the specter, but from within their very selves. "What else lies within us?" the fierce woman murmured, a harsh whisper of realization cutting through the cheering warmth. The crowd fell silent, the air crackling with uncertainty. The laughter of their former dread echoed softly, displaced but not defeated. Would they survive the revelation still to come, or had they only begun to scratch the surface of their tangled truths? The question hovered, heavy with anticipation. The light faded, leaving them in a haze of confusion. What had just happened? The spectre's shriek still echoed in their minds, intertwining with fragments of their deepest fears. The fierce woman felt the hot sting of tears prickle at her eyes. "In the shadows, we have hidden too long," the old man said, his voice trembling. "But light cannot banish our fears if we do not face them." A collective shiver rippled through the villagers, they exchanged wary glances now shadowed by uncertainty. The young boy stepped closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "What do we do now?" Panic choked his words, heavy and tangible. "Look inside yourself," the fierce woman responded, her voice steadying like a firm anchor in choppy waters. "We've fought the darkness outside. Now we must face what's within." As if summoned by her words, an invisible weight pressed down on them. Each villager felt it, a squeezing clench around their hearts, reminiscent of rusty chains binding them to secrets they dared not divulge. The swirling shadows returned, more chaotic than before. They danced around the villagers, haunting silhouettes of their fears. Flashes of memory burst forth, all the whispers in the night they had buried deep. "Stop. We can't let fear win. Not again." The burly man roared, attempting to rally his fellow villagers. They stood together, unified yet quaking with the weight of the unspoken. The fierce woman breathed slowly, focusing on the heat of defiance in her chest. "We cannot ignore our pain. It'll eat us alive. We must speak our truths." "What truths?" A voice broke from the back, laced with skepticism. "Truth can't change what has already shattered us." "It can heal us," she replied warmly, her conviction igniting hope. "It can free us from this torment." One by one, they began to speak. An elderly woman with trembling hands shared her tale of loss, her family torn apart by greed. Another villager spoke of a night spent reeling from guilt, unable to save a friend lost to darkness. The floodgates opened, voices rising and blending into a choir of shared sorrows, fears pouring out into the air. Each word spun another thread of light, spreading through the encroaching darkness. The shadows twisted but shrank as the villagers bared their souls, revealing their vulnerabilities. The fierce woman felt herself empowered, with every confession, the burden lifted a little more. "Look! We are stronger than the shadows," she shouted, feeling the warmth of shared resolve ripple among them, but as they embraced their courage, the shadows flared menacingly, twisting into more sinister forms, darker and more grotesque than before. The spectre reformed in the haze, face contorted with rage, its voice booming with scorn. "You think you can drown me in words? You are still bound by your secrets. Nothing can set you free." A wave of silence washed over the villagers. Doubt clawed at their hearts, and the spectre pressed its advantage. "Why do you think you've survived so long? You hide from the truth, buried beneath layers of regret." A tremor ran through the fierce woman, she realized their revelations had sharpened the spectre's fury. "We can't let it win. We stick together," she yelled, her voice cracking but fierce. Suddenly, something stirred deep within her, a memory of her father's voice guiding her through darkness. With renewed determination, she took a step toward the spectre. "What if sharing more of our truth can break your power?" she challenged, heart pounding, but the shadows recoiled at her intrepid advance, swirling menacingly. Would her courage be enough to unravel the monstrosity's hold? Or were they on the verge of awakening something even worse within themselves? The stakes were rising, and the air crackled with impending danger, leaving them grasping desperately for hope amidst the shadows. What if the deepest secrets weren't just theirs to bear alone? The air was thick with uncertainty, every villager hanging by a thread of hope. The spectre loomed before them, eyes glinting like cold steel, searching for any sign of weakness. Its voice slithered around them, wrapping tighter like a noose. "You think you can outsmart me? Your truths are mere whispers against the roar of your fears. Then we'll shout louder," the fierce woman declared, her voice breaking like thunder through the oppressive silence. She turned to the villagers, searching their faces for the resolve she hoped to ignite. "It's time to dig deeper. beyond the shame and the regret. The young boy, still trembling, spoke up. But what if we lose control? What if we're just feeding it? Each villager felt the weight of his words, the heaviness of potential loss lurking just beneath. But the fierce woman stepped back and steadied herself, her heart racing. We can't let fear dictate who we are. In what felt almost like a collective breath, the villagers began again to share, voices trembling yet fierce. The burly man recounted his experience of betrayal, how a trusted friend had savaged him with lies. An echoing gasp flared through the crowd, a wave of electric recognition sparking in the air. As stories unfolded, the spectre's form flickered, its shadows squeezing tighter, morphing into grotesque shapes that mirrored every agonizing confession. The more they revealed, the more formidable it became. "Look!" cried the elderly woman as she pointed a gnarled finger at the twisting shadows. "It's feeding on us." Panic bubbled among them, but the fierce woman held her ground. "No. It's not just feeding, it's terrified. It thrives on our silence. The moment we speak, we take away its power." Emboldened, she pushed forward, her heart racing against the tide of fear that sought to drown her. "Tell me your darkest secret. Speak it out loud." She shouted, a call to arms that resonated deep within the crowd. Her defiance held a spark of something electric, and on cue, the elderly man stepped forward. I hid my kid's illness from everyone. Thought I'd protect them by keeping it buried." Gasps swept through the villagers, but this time, there was no turning back. Each confession spilled forth, wild and raw, cascading into the shadows, which wriggled and shrieked in response to the unearthing emotion. With each revelation, the spectre twisted more fiercely, its form momentarily flickering like a candle in a tempest. "Your truth is only a weapon if it remains unspoken." It screeched, and a shock of pain smacked through the collective crowd. The fierce woman felt that pain spike within her too, an ache that gnawed at her heart as the shadows seemed to drown the flickers of newfound determination, yet in the chaos, the fierce woman caught a glimpse of something stirring in the depths of the fear. Amidst the rising fear and anguished revelations, a shiver of clarity cut through. "There's more to this." "More?" the young boy whispered, eyes wide, breathless against the bowing shadows. The village fell still, the spectre's rage rising and falling like a crescendo. "What are you hinting at?" it shrieked, its voice warped, frantic. "Are we just running from what we really are?" she asked, the question hanging heavily, leading them all to pound the same internal drum. What if our strength lies in facing not just our fears, but our true selves? The air crackled with trepidation, an unsteady conviction cutting through the room. They faced each other, realizing this spectre wasn't merely a manifestation of fear. It might represent the very hearts they sought to protect, but as the light of truth began to illuminate their path, shadows swirled in fury again, insisting on swallowing the light whole. Their battle with fear was just beginning. What truths lay buried within their hearts, waiting to be unearthed? Would these secrets strengthen them or break them apart under the weight of revelation? They had no way of knowing, but what if, within their combined light, they could disrupt the very fabric of their darkest nightmare? The fierce woman stood at the forefront, her breath hitching as the shadows roared in protest. "We can't let it consume us," she shouted again, her voice ringing clearer this time, emboldened by the fire igniting in her chest. Every villager felt it, a collective pulse of bravery rising against the encroaching dark. "Keep speaking," urged the burly man, his fists clenched at his sides as if ready to fight. "Don't stop now." They shared more, voices lifting one another like a rising tide. The elderly man stepped forward again. I never accepted my own happiness after I lost my wife." His voice quivered but held an unexpected weight that rocked the spectre. A guttural scream surged from the spectre, and its swirling mass flickered violently, losing some of its edge. "Feed it the truth," the fierce woman shouted. "It's not just our secrets, it's our pains, our regrets, our triumphs too." The young boy stuttered, "I was afraid to play sports. Everyone said I was too weak. He stole glances at the older villagers, gauging their reactions. A whisper swept through the crowd, a sound that felt like a rush of wind, uncertainty breaking into hope. Suddenly, the shadows writhed violently, trying to reassert their grip. Silence. The spectre screamed, the voice a mix of rage and desperation. Your truths mean nothing. But to us, they mean everything. A woman cried, stepping into the fray, her confidence buoyed by the energy burgeoning around them. As villagers continued to pour forth their vulnerabilities, a soft light flared from the core of their gathering, a shimmering glow that pulsed in rhythm with their declarations. The fierce woman felt it in her core. Each raw emotion was a chip in the spectre's armor, an illumination rising that threatened to drown the darkness. The air thickened with electricity, crackling with the collective courage as people began to draw strength from one another's truths. Each gasp, each pause, held the promise of healing wrapped in the tendrils of vulnerability that dissected the shadow, but as the spectre seethed, its form starting to split apart under the pressure, it unleashed a deafening screech that sent a shockwave through the villagers. Stop this now. You think you can break me? I am the sum of your fears. The villagers recoiled, the fierce woman's heart raced. What if it's not just our darkness it feeds on? She thought desperately. What if it's our light, our latent potential? Tell me your strength. She shouted, her eyes blazing. Challenge it with your light. The crowd stirred, uncertain. But one by one, they stepped closer, readying their words to share not the darkness, but their inner sparks. I've learned to stand up for myself, declared the elderly woman, who had once cowered in silence. I love to dance. Another villager shouted, breaking the oppressive weight. I won't hide it anymore. With each uplifting confession, beams of light flickered from their unified spirits, illuminating the gathering and banishing portions of the shadows. The spectre began to quiver, swaying against the tide, but then the shadows flared, pushing back with ferocity that knocked some villagers to the ground. Fools! It shrieked. You think your light can defeat me? Their faces twisted in fear, all hope at risk of being extinguished in an instant. The fierce woman braced herself, steeling her resolve. Together, we are stronger, our truths, our light, our strength combined. A hush fell over them, the air thick with anticipation. What would happen next? Would they find the strength needed to vanquish the spectre hiding in their hearts? The fierce woman's spirit surged, a blend of dread and hope mixing in the air as they pushed deeper into the light. They had to step forward, or risk falling forever into the shadows. What awaited them when they fully embraced their power? Would the dark not reflect their light, but instead consume it whole? They had to know. The swirling shadows danced around them, dark tendrils twisting like living beasts, clawing at the edges of their fears. The villagers locked eyes, each pulse quickening with the weight of the moment. The spectre roared, a cacophony of anguish that reverberated through their bones, threatening to drown them in despair. Its form flickered, hissing and writhing as it seethed, desperate to maintain control. Face it! The fierce woman yelled, her voice slicing through the chaos. No darkness can withstand our truth. The villagers stood, hearts racing, emboldened by the knowledge that their voices held power. The stories they had buried now burning bright within them. One by one, they began to speak. The elderly woman, shaking yet triumphant, declared, I am not just a relic of my sadness, I am the laughter that still resides in my memories. The air thickened, charged with a new energy, spreading through the crowd like wildfire. Each shared truth illuminated the depths of their hearts, unveiling layers of strength they hadn't known existed. I am proud of my scars, bellowed the burly man, fists raised high. They tell stories of battles fought and won. Another voice followed, I am a dreamer, and I won't let your darkness stifle my hopes. The spectre faltered, its form shuddering. The shadows swirled in confusion. What was happening? With each confession, the very fabric of darkness began to unravel, slowly pulling back, as if the collective light of their truths was forcing it to retreat. The fierce woman felt a powerful surge within her. Fear was no longer an anchor, but a buoy lifting them from the depths of despair. Together, let us summon every ounce of courage we possess, she cried, galvanizing her fellow villagers. Let our light pierce the darkest corners of our souls. The air crackled electric, each person basked in the warmth of shared strength, their vulnerabilities transformed into shields against the haunting specter. As they joined hands, a brilliant brilliance radiated from their center, a pulse of energy that resonated with the undeniable truth of their existence. We will not be defined by our fears. We will rise. They shouted in unison, voices ringing in harmonious defiance. The specter recoiled, its malicious countenance melting into fear. You dare? You cannot defeat me. I will consume you. It screeched, frantically reaching out, its claws thrumming against their resolve. But with each confession, with every flicker of light, it twisted further into the abyss, screams echoing as its grip on reality waned. Fear is only powerful when kept alone, the fierce woman declared, her heart pounding like thunder in her chest. By sharing our truth and embracing our light, we dissolve its control over us. Together, echoed the village, uniting as one solid force, harnessing the power of their interconnected stories. We are not alone, they shouted, their unified voices reverberating deep within the earth. Each pulse of defiance shimmered brighter, layering upon layers of strength, illuminating the surrounding darkness, and then it happened, a blinding flash erupted from the heart of their gathering. The specter shrieked, mismatched cries weaving in catastrophic frenzy as their light surged forth, shredding shadow and doubt alike. With one final roar of defiance, the specter dissolved into nothingness, the shadows puffing away like wisp of smoke in the morning sun. Silence fell, thick and heavy, but this time it was not filled with dread. Instead, warmth enveloped them, a collective sigh of relief washing over the villagers. They stood in a clearing surrounded by the remnants of fog, breathing in the fresh, clean air. The fierce woman glanced around, her heart swelling with pride. The faces of her fellow villagers glowed, illuminated by the undeniable beauty of their shared truths. We did it, she whispered, a lump forming in her throat. Yes, the elderly man replied softly, tears glistening in his eyes. We faced our fears and battled for our light. They all nodded, a camaraderie born from struggle, each heart now carrying the weight of liberation, transformed through vulnerability. As the sun broke through the clouds, rays of golden light spilled into the clearing, warming their faces. They hadn't just escaped, they had emerged victorious together. The fierce woman raised her chin defiantly to the sky, a renewed spirit sparkling in her eyes. This is our beginning, she proclaimed. No more hiding in shadows. No more whispers of despair. We travel onward, together. With laughter and stories mingling in the air, they began their journey anew, emboldened to traverse both the light and dark that lay ahead. United, with hearts aglow, the villagers left the clearing, each step ringing with newfound strength, ready to embrace the world. They would create their own legends, no longer bound by silence but alive in their truth. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey. Don't forget to subscribe immediately to catch more exclusive stories that will leave you breathless. Smash that like button now to help spread the love and feed the algorithm. We want to hear from you, so flood the comments section with your thoughts and reactions, and don't wait even one more second to share this video with 5 friends who need to experience this powerful conclusion. Remember, true fans understand the importance of supporting our channel, so take action now.